The TV was blaring again, another late-night sports rerun filling the silence of a small apartment in Boston. Tom sat motionless on the couch, his eyes fixed on the glowing screen, though he hadn't really watched it for months. It wasn't about the game. It was about the noise, the only thing that drowned out the echo of a home that used to be filled with laughter. On the coffee table lay an unopened envelope with the words, "Discharge Summary," printed across the top. It had been 2 weeks since the hospital called, and Tom still couldn't bring himself to open it. His wife, Claire, had always been the one who handled life's paperwork. She'd been the voice of calm, the heart of their home, until the accident took her sight, and nearly took her spirit. Since then, silence had become their unspoken enemy. That evening, Claire shuffled into the living room, guided by the faint pattern of her steps and the soft sound of Tom's breathing. She paused by the couch, listening to the noise that filled the room, sports commentators shouting, the crowd roaring. "Tom," she said gently, "could you lower it a bit?" He didn't respond. Maybe he didn't hear her, or maybe he didn't want to. The truth was, the TV kept him from having to face the quiet. From having to face her, the woman who once painted sunlight into every corner of his life but now sat in shadows of her own. Claire took a few careful steps forward, found the remote by touch, and turned down the volume. The room fell into a thick, uneasy silence. Then she whispered, almost playfully, "Now you can focus on me." Her words hung in the air like a dare, and something in Tom cracked. He hadn't looked at her properly in weeks. He turned, really turned, and saw her sitting beside him, hair still damp from her evening shower, face soft and searching. Her sightless eyes were focused somewhere just past him, but her hand was reaching out, open and steady. For the first time since the accident, Tom took it. "You know," she said, smiling faintly, "you've been avoiding me." "I wasn't," he stopped, then sighed. "I didn't know how to help you, Claire. I didn't know what to say. Everything feels broken." She squeezed his hand. "Then stop trying to fix me, Tom. Just see me. I'm still here." He felt something rise in his throat, a mix of guilt and love and regret. "I thought I lost you." She laughed softly. "You almost did. But not the way you think." That night, the TV stayed off. They sat together, talking for hours, about small things, old memories, the silly moments they'd forgotten. Tom realized how much he'd missed the sound of her laugh, the rhythm of her sentences, the quiet comfort of her presence. Over the next few weeks, they built new routines. He learned to guide her through the park instead of watching from the sidelines. She learned to navigate the kitchen again, by touch, by memory, by faith. One evening, she asked to hear the birds outside instead of music. Another time, she taught him how to cook by scent and texture instead of sight. Slowly, the noise faded from their lives, replaced by something richer, connection, understanding, presence. Months later, Tom finally opened the envelope. Inside was a note from the doctor recommending therapy, adaptive training, and patience. At the bottom, in Claire's neat handwriting, someone had written, "Don't focus on what's lost. Focus on what's left, and who's still here." He looked up at her, sitting across the table, a faint beam of afternoon light brushing her face. She turned toward him, as if she could feel his gaze. "What are you smiling at?" she asked. "Just you," he said softly. "I finally learned how to focus." She chuckled. "Took you long enough." Moral: sometimes, love isn't about grand gestures or perfect words. It's about turning down the noise of the world long enough to hear the quiet truth. That the people who matter most don't need fixing. They just need you to listen.